Welcome to the Workforce Connections podcast, where we discuss workforce development in Southern Nevada. Here's your host.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the WC Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, my friend for over 30 years. He is now the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Pacific Utility Installation. He grew up here in Vegas, but he's going to tell you all about that. He was gone for a long time. He's going to tell you about that too. But please welcome my friend, Greg Stechert. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, me. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this. Again, you're now it's probably going to be a month or two that you're back, but for a long time you were not here. But we want to know first, before we talk about why you came back, tell us about how it all started. Where were you born? I know the story, but our listeners want to know where you were born, where you grew up, went to school. Take us all the way to your first job at a school.
Okay. I was born in 1969, so I just made the cutoff before the 70s. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in a little place called Jenkintown. Fun fact, if you ever watched the Goldbergs, they actually shoot that, and they're right there in Jenkintown, funny enough. But and another fun fact, I was born in the bathtub.
Wow.
So my mom went into labor, and I was born right in the bathtub. So I got baptized right out the gate.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, God was like, man, I got to get my hands on this guy early.
Wow.
So I lived in Philadelphia till the age of 5. And so we moved in 1974 from Philadelphia to Las Vegas. And so I started elementary school, junior high, high school.
What schools were those?
I went to C.C. Rano. I went to Rex Bell. I went to Garside, Cashman Junior High.
Garside is right around the corner from here.
And then Bonanza, which is
Right
actually
around
very, very close.
Wow.
Yeah, I finished up my high school at Bonanza in 87 and did a little bit of college, but really jumped right into the work force. So that kind of answers the
What was
question
that first job?
Well, you know, out of high school, the first job was with a company called MS Concrete, where I did concrete.
Wow.
And yeah, that was tough. Shoveling concrete for 8 hours a day in dirt.
That explains your hands.
Right. And my nice tan.
That's true.
Right. But I actually, my very, very first job was with the Review Journal when I was in like 6th grade, 7th grade. Yeah, I went door to door and I would sell the newspaper for $5.25. You knock on the door and you pitch them for the newspaper. And so I sold so many newspapers. It's crazy the things that you see early on in life, you know, some of those hardwired things. But I sold so many newspapers, they brought me to the Review Journal and put me in front of, I think, the owner or the president. And the guy said, I want to hear your pitch. So, yeah, it was amazing.
Wow. And so now, tell me a little bit about that college. You spent some time in college. Was it here in town?
It was. I went to CCC. And I took a welding class.
That's when it was called the Clark County Community College?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Welding class, you said?
I took a welding class. Wow. Yeah, I was working for an outfit called BP Williams, and I thought I wanted to be a welder. And after the welding class, I realized, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want decomposed fluxes coming underneath the mask and you know, poisoning me. So, yeah, I did that. And after MS Concrete, it was actually at that job that I was running back and forth to go get a tool or something. I think the guys told me, hey, go get the board stretcher out of the truck. And did that ever happen to you?
No.
Yeah. So they say, wait, go get the board stretcher. I say, what does it look like? They say, you'll know it when you see it, but you can't stretch a board. A board won't be stretched. So it's a practical joke. They have you looking for something that doesn't exist. But I ran to the vehicle to go get it. And these guys that were up on power poles with a company called Power Plus, they saw me running, and the guy approached me and said, hey, you look like the hardest worker down there on the pads. Would you like to come to work for us?
Power Plus.
Power Plus.
And that's where I met you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was back in 1991, 92. Wow. And so I went to work for them, and I was with them for 12 years.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and that's where a big piece of the story is for us.
You spent 12 years at Power Plus. I knew you through those years, but then your life took you somewhere else. You had another professional life, not in this state.
Right.
What did you do?
Well, it was actually here. I worked for Power Plus till 2002, and then I left that position. I took a position as a youth pastor for 2 years, and then when I left that position, I moved with my wife and 2 daughters to South Florida, to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And so my wife is Hispanic. She has a very big Hispanic family, very tight. And when her mom and dad moved and her sister and my brother-in-law moved, we were going out there 3-4 times a year to visit. And that's the deceitful thing about Florida, South Florida. And for those of you that love South Florida, please don't send me any hate mail. But you visit
it's
so good. It's green and it's tropical in the ocean. But then you move there and you go, oh, man, what did I do? Right? So the mosquitoes, the humidity.
The Publix
Oh,
stores.
man, it's just tough. Huh?
The Publix stores.
The public stores?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
More
like
of
the Vons over there.
Man,
Right.
it's, well, I'm trying to think of the name, Winn-Dixie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Winn-Dixie, you're taking your life in your own hands.
Yeah.
So kind of crazy. But we were there for 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah. And in that 20-year span, I did a whole lot of things. Where I ended up before I moved back is I opened up my own company called Deep Roots Consulting Group. And so that was really birthed out of me. I think the abilities that I have is to communicate with people. And I'm really, really, really dyed to the cloth on customer service, on really going the extra mile, delivering a wonderful experience. You know, when people are paying, you got to give them top notch, right?
Absolutely.
And so I started a company called Deep Roots Consulting Group where I would help companies in the home service industry, air conditioning companies, plumbing companies, the technicians, very good with their hands, not always the best communicating, relationships, connecting, building that rapport. And so I would go in and help those companies with that, you know, to help grow that business.
Which brings us to now, you know, your newest transition and why you're here today, because you're back in town. You're back in here in Vegas, back in our community. You're reconnecting with old friends, of which I'm one of them. But you started this journey with Pacific Utility.
Yeah.
And so Pacific Utility Installation is the name of the company. Is that
is correct.
And so tell us about this company, because I know you're excited a bit being with them. What do they do? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Strangely enough, the gentleman that I worked for at Power Plus, a gentleman named Scott Haversick, him and I became very, very close friends. And he lives in Southern California. And so even though he left Power Plus and I left Power Plus and we went our own ways, we always stayed in touch. He took the position as COO of the company at Pacific Utility Installation. And oddly enough, one of the sales reps, a gentleman named Daniel Mole, who is the sole owner of Pacific Utility Installation. Daniel Mole, he was a sales rep for Power Plus in the Southern California market. So we knew each other. We talked. We went White River rafting in Fresno, California. Wow. So it's like we knew one another. He left Power Plus, I think it was in 96 or 97, and he started PUI, Pacific Utility Installation. So there's a lot of roots there.
Yeah.
And when my friend Scott Haversick took the position, he reached out to me several times while I lived in South Florida and said, hey, Greg, come back home, come back to Vegas, be the guy. But the timing wasn't right. My girls were still in school. It didn't make any sense at that time. But as life has it, things lined up.
Yeah.
And I made the move. And so we got here in September of this year.
Yeah.
So we've been here, I think, 3 months.
Wow, that's flown by. So you're here. We know why you're here. Obviously, it was founded in relationships that were developed years ago. Tell us about the company. What does the company do? What services it offers? And what's your role in the company?
Okay, perfect. Well, in Southern California, what they do is they do turnkey, everything to do with utilities. So they do substations, high transmission lines. They do underground utility power. So they do power, but they do water and sewer, gas. And then they do what's called applicant install, where they can actually design the entire program. So when home builders are doing a subdivision, many times they have to have NV Energy, Southwest Gas, do all the layouts. In Southern California market, since deregulation took place years ago, we actually can do all of that, which is a big, big help to builders and contractors. Here in Southern Nevada, NV Energy, their deregulation has not taken place, so we don't have as much of the control. But here locally, we do underground power, we do sewer and water, we're on the NV Energy list, so we're contracted by them to pull wire, and we're in pursuit to get our gas license with Southwest Gas. Once we don't have it yet, but once we get that, we'll have a full suite of services. So a builder, a contractor could come to us and say, you can do my whole project. Everything that has to do with underground, we're able to do it.
So whether it's a tract home developer or commercial developers, they're your customers.
Correct. So industrial, commercial, residential. And, I was thinking about that actually this morning. It's funny because when you go to Starbucks, you go to different places, you're not always thinking about everything that's under the ground. But there's a whole other world underneath there that feeds all the power, the communication, the telephones, all of the stuff that makes our life so pleasurable and easy. Somebody had to put all that in the ground.
For sure.
And we are the company that does that.
That's really cool. And so, like you say, you're not the only ones. Now we know what you do, but you have, of course, peers, competition in the industry. And I've known you for a long time to know that this is where you shine. And you just said it earlier. You want to give somebody 100% the best you can. What makes PUI different, better, more special?
Yeah. I think it is a couple of things. One is when I'm in pursuit of building relationships and getting a contract, just like if I were doing business with you, Jaime, I'd say, Jaime, long after the contract has been signed, I won't disappear. I'm your advocate. The same way I pursued you is the same way I'm going to fight for you and jump in if there's any issue. People want to know at the end of the day, I have a person to be able to go to that will advocate on my behalf and make sure that the project, the schedule stays on time, things are done right, all of that. That's one. The second is Pacific Utility is structured under an ESOP. Do you know what that is? ESOP is an employee structured ownership plan. And so it's where a company actually sells back the company to the employees through shares. And so once you're there for an amount of time, you're fully vested. And then as the company is profitable, you profit as well. And so that's very unique in the construction industry. A lot of utility companies are not structured that way. And what that gives us the ability to do is to draw and attract some of the best talent and then retain that talent. Because once you're fully invested in the company and you're going to make good money, you don't want to leave. And so the owners were really wise in putting that in place so that we would have a good team of people and we wouldn't lose them.
Yeah, it's evident that they are different among their peers in the industry. Tell us about some big names that people would recognize, projects that PUI has been involved with.
Well, one that we're currently working on, it hasn't come to complete fruition, that I think you're very familiar with or you might know about, is the high-speed train that they're going to be doing from California.
Brightline West.
That's correct. So we are working on the design, and we're going to be a part of that install. And then as far as here in town, I've only been here 8 months, so we're still getting traction. I wish I could say
3 months living, but the first few months you were commuting.
Back and forth. Yeah, so I've been with the company for 8 months. Yep. 5 of those months I was here 1 week and then remote back in Florida.
Yep.
So really only half of the month.
Yep.
So I've been here full-time 3 months. Yep. But in that course of time, we've gotten projects with Cottrell Jensen, Signature Homes. We've done some stuff for Lennar. They're the largest home builder here in southern Nevada.
Yep.
And there's a project called Cadence where...
Boulder Highway.
Yeah, man. You know everything, Jaime.
Well, no, you're throwing out some big names now.
Yeah. Well, you asked. You asked for the big names, and now I'm bringing them. So they have a project Cadence does, and they needed to get a lot of work done in a short period of time. And so in 3 days, we pulled 7 miles worth of cable, set like 175 transformers, and I think 165 pole boxes.
Wow.
It was all recorded, done safely, done by best practices. The superintendents could not believe the amount of work that we did in that period of time.
Wow.
And so we are a very, very large competitor in the market. I like to call us a sleeping giant. I really do, because we are Southern California based. We have an office here, but we're starting to get traction. And once that begins to happen and more people begin to use us, I think it's going to catch, and we're going to grow and take off.
Yeah, especially the big project you mentioned, Brightline West, is over a $10 million project. I'm sorry, $10 billion project. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's humongous. I imagine that's going to be something that you only have an opportunity once in a lifetime. Those are just, once in a lifetime projects that are going to unite two communities, Southern Nevada, Southern California.
Yeah. Get you into Baker or Barstow, one of those, right?
Yeah. And you've ridden the Brightline in Florida, right?
Yes.
So have I. And that's what a concept.
It's a luxury. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Fast and comfortable and nice.
Yeah. Food and different options on seating. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it. So you've mentioned, that it happens through people. The superintendents were impressed by the work that you did, but you and Scott certainly weren't there setting the transformers, running that cable. You have people, you have talented people that work for you guys. And today and age, every employer tells us that's the most difficult part, to first recruit, attract, and then retain the talent you need. What is, you've told us PUI put some thought into employee ownership. How else are you able to attract and retain the talent that makes you successful? Do you have, are you having trouble with that? Is that also the hardest thing for you guys to do?
Well, it's stick and carrot. We bless them and take good care of them, and if they don't do good, then we threaten them.
You get the stick out.
I'm just joking. No, not at all. No, not at all. We do a lot of training. There's a lot of perks. You have to be involved and really care, and you have to give people a vision and a direction of what they can be. So some guys that start as a laborer, right, and they're just starting to lay some pipe and learn the trade, we tell them realistically, look, within 6 months to a year, you could be here, you could be here, you could be a foreman. And so I really do believe that people need a couple things. They need good compensation, they need good contribution, and they need a vision and a direction of where their life is going to go, a career. Not just a job, but a real career. Truly, hey, you're here now, but in a year you can be here, and in 3 years you can be here. And that gives them hope to say, man, I want to shoot for that and aim for that. And so that's something that I think every company needs, and we try to do a very good job at that to keep them inspired and keep them engaged. Yeah.
And so tell me now, if you, for example, somebody wanted to find work with you guys, job seekers, but also use your services, where would somebody go to find more about PUI? Can you give us the website, the URL, so we can put it on the screen?
Sure. Thank you. The website is www.pacificutility.com. Pretty simple. And they could go on there and find the tab for employment, job opportunities. If there's open jobs at that time, then they'll be listed there. But they'd easily be able to get in contact with someone and get directed to our HR department. Okay. And or they could contact me directly. I don't know if there's a way to get my.
You can put your number here if you want it, or your personal email address. Give it to us.
Okay, that would be Greg, Greg, period, Stechert, Stechert, at pacificutility.com.
Great.
Yeah. And I would love to talk with them. And
and you told Scott an invoice is coming for this advertising,
right? That's correct. I did.
Now I'm joking.
He knows, right?
I'm joking now. Don't start sweating.
No sweat.
All right. So we've talked a lot about work, though.
Yeah.
But this podcast is also about getting to know the person. And again, I was really happy when you told me you were thinking about coming back because, again, I've known you. I know this journey. And we've had stories here at the WC podcast of, success. But not all success looks the same. Sometimes in a game of poker, you're dealt different cards, different hands, and you have to try to make the best out of it. And I know you weren't dealt the best hand. And you've played multiple times in your life and got dealt multiple, different hands. This latest one has been great, coming back to Vegas, but tell us a little bit about your, those things. I know you've had literally brushes with death.
Yeah.
Again, sometimes bad fortune. But what has kept you in the game? How did you, what was the key things that helped you overcome those bad hands that you were dealt? And give us, maybe some examples.
Such a great question. I like to look at the tapestry of my life, Jaime. And I don't know if you've ever seen this visual, but when they do a tapestry for a picture, if you look at the back of it, it looks like a total mess. It's all discolored and out of, and you flip it over and there's something beautiful. Some of the dark tapestry of my life would be when I was born in 1969, my mom had put my older brother and sister and I all in foster care. So my older brother and sister went to a foster home together, and I went to a foster home by myself, but with 2 siblings. And so I was in foster care from 18 months of age, almost to the age of 5. And so they were going to adopt me. My mom, back then through Catholic Charities, was going to set it all up. And the day that they were going to adopt me, they had, I think, 40 people, they said, there with gifts, all these people that love me. And my mom had picked me up for a visitation, and she never returned with me. She just drove us from Philadelphia right out to Las Vegas. Wow. And so my foster parents were devastated. They don't know what happened to me. They couldn't find me. Oddly enough, they looked for me for 25, 30 years. And when I turned 40, I got a message through Facebook from a person I did not know. It said, hey, were you in foster care between the ages of this and this up in Philadelphia? It was crazy. Wow. And I said, yes. And she said, do you remember anything about that? And I said, I do have some memories. I was with them almost 5 years, and I only have very fragmented memories of 5 years. So I don't know if that's trauma. I'm sure, if I sat with someone, they could tell me. But she replied and said, I can finish all of those memories for you. I think we found you. Wow. Can I send you some pictures of you? And she sent me like 8 pictures of myself that I had never seen. And that was just completely wild. Yeah. So we got reunited, and they flew my wife and I and my 2 daughters up to Philadelphia, and we had that reunion that we never got back when I was young.
That's cool.
Probably because, I was in foster care. I never met my real father. There was a number of other things. Unfortunately, I started doing drugs at a very young age, like when I was in 5th grade. A lot of crime. I mean, I had done everything but killed somebody by the time I was in like 7th grade. Wow. And so I was probably headed to prison or some, horrible situation in life. When I was 15, my older brother had invited me to go to church. I went, I gave my life to Christ, and I had a radical turnaround in my life. I met my wife there, Susie, at youth group, and we've been married now 36 years. Yeah. We got married, 91. So
get this one right.
No, I'm good in English. Oh, good. The math is pretty bad. Let's see. No, I would say we're coming up on 33 years, right? And we dated for 6 years. Yeah. So
I love the picture you post on Facebook of you and her when you were those young kids.
Yeah, I met her when she was 14 and a half.
That picture,
and I was 15 and a half. Yeah. So we dated for 6 years, got married in August of 91. And been married ever since, have 2 beautiful daughters. And so that was just a 180, for me. That was just a big, big change in my life. And I think through church, community, you and I met.
That's where we met about that time.
I mean, I met Richard Box, Lonnie Wright. I mean, there's a lot of key people that came alongside, and I was probably, mentored in some way and wasn't even completely aware of it, So I look and I see God's divine protection all my life. Yes.
I have one example I want you to tell about that because I remember hearing from it. But tell us about the stabbing incident.
Yeah. I was 25 or 26 years old. And myself and 2 of my good friends, we went to, what was the water park on?
Wet and Wild.
Wet and Wild, yeah. We went to Wet and Wild for the day. We finished and stopped off at Taco Bell right at Sahara in Maryland to get a bite to eat.
That building's still there.
Actually, they tore it down.
Oh,
that Taco Bell is gone.
Oh, wow. What's in its place now?
Dirt.
Okay. Wow. I haven't been in there in a while then.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I drove by and I was like, man, it is, there's the place. So long story short, I ended up sticking up for a young kid with a gentleman that was 18 years old, 17 or 18. Unbeknownst to me, he had a big knife in his pocket, and we walked outside, and I wrapped my arms around him because I was going to kind of take him down and try to subdue him. And in the process, he stabbed me twice in under my on the side. It went under my rib cage and hit my lung, and then he pulled it out and stuck it right here in my chest, and it went right next to my aorta.
It missed it by
milli-inches.
Yeah.
But I went to UMC. The doctor actually put his finger down in the incision.
Wow.
It was that deep, and he said, man, you should be singing with Elvis.
Wow.
You should not be alive right now. And so they stitched me up. They put Metro cops outside the door because it was a violent crime. And, you know, a lot of people don't get this. This is big. You know, people have to wait until they pass for people to show up and say these beautiful, wonderful things about them. You know, I got that early, and that was a gift to me. Hundreds, literally hundreds of people showed up to UMC to check on me and tell me that they love me. Crazy thing is, I was under such strong like drugs. I had Demerol in me, and I would pass out, and I'd come to, and I'd see another face.
Wow.
And I'd pass out, and another person would be there. But the nurse asked me, she said, can I ask you something? And I said, yeah, sure.
Why are you so famous?
She said, who are you?
Right.
And I said, what do you mean? She was like, are you a politician? Are you an actor? Who are you? And I said, I'm just a normal guy. And I said, why do you ask that? And she said, I've never seen this many people come to visit one individual in my life. And I've been nursing for a long time. And so I think that goes along with a conviction and a value that I have is I want to put more into life than I take out.
Yeah.
You know, and I really do value, as you and I have, friendships with people. That's what life is all about.
We have time to for another one. What other story do you think is could be recent or not defining like that could be, again, divine intervention or, you know, led by something greater than our decisions? I know you have many, but...
Well, one of the biggest things that happened within the last year, and this is really wild, and I don't know, for those that watch this and listen to this, if it's ever happened to you, you'll get, you know, buy-in, and if it hasn't, you'll go, that guy is, what is happening right now? But when I started Deep Roots Consulting Group, that would take me to a lot of different conventions, you know, and I went to one in Nashville where the keynote speaker was a gentleman named Tommy Mello. Tommy Mello is the owner of A1 Garage Door, several other companies. He's an author.
Yeah, I've used A1 Garage Door.
You have?
Yeah.
And I use A1 Garage Door. So I hope Tommy sees this and we'll send him an invoice. So he was a keynote speaker, and he did a wonderful job. And when he was on stage, from time to time, he would say a curse word, nothing crazy, you know, but he would always say afterwards, pardon my French, or prior to. And this is my belief. I think that when people typically say, pardon my French, it's almost like their conscience is bothering them a little bit. People that curse like a sailor, they don't ever say, pardon my French. They just let it fly, you know? But he did, and it caught my attention. And so I'm not one of those guys to wait for someone when they get off the stage, but I did for him. And when he came down off the stage and the other people had left, it was just him and I alone. I said, Tommy, man, you did a really good job. I liked a lot of the things you shared. There's just one thing I don't understand. And he goes, what's that? And I said, I don't speak a lick of French, but I understood everything you said. And he started to laugh, and he got the message, you know, and he said, what's your name? And so we exchanged pleasantries, and he said, give me your name and number. And he gave me his. I thought that was very kind of him, you know. Being a prominent person, he didn't need to do that. We left. Fast forward the tape about 8 months, and I'm watching a podcast, strangely enough, on my phone, and it's him with another guy, and he's being interviewed. And as I'm watching it, I see back behind Tommy a picture on the floor facing kind of the camera. It was very granulated, grainy, and you couldn't make it out, but it looked to me like a picture maybe of Jesus, that photo of his hand reaching out, you know? And so I'm looking at that, and as I'm staring at the picture, I get a message downloaded. And I know this sounds pretty profound and crazy, but it was very, very clear. So clear. It was like God spoke to me and said, hey, I want you to call Tommy. I want you to tell him that I haven't forgotten the promise he made to me when he was on his knees crying, that if I would raise him up and put him on a platform, that he would use that platform to glorify me. And then I saw in my mind's eye a volume, like on a radio, and I knew instinctively that it was turned up only halfway. And that God was saying, tell Tommy to crank it up, to become very vocal. And I was blown away. I was just like, and it was just like.
You didn't call him, right?
I did. I did. Of course I did. You know me. I didn't call him right then. I texted him.
Wow.
And I said, hey, Tommy, how are you? And he goes, who is this? I could show you the text messages, right? Who is this? I said, this is the guy you met in Nashville. And he says, how's it going? And I said, hey, do you have time for a quick call? He goes, what is this regarding? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I have to give you a message. Mm-hmm. And he goes, what is it about? And I said, it can't be done through text. I'll have to call you and talk to you. So about 4 or 5 days later, I'm, working on my computer at home, and my phone rings, and I look at it and it says Tommy Mello, because we exchanged, numbers in Nashville. So I said, oh, here we go. So I answer it and I say, hey, Tommy, how are you? This guy's a billionaire.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I like how you didn't push it. You kind of let it. You did your part and then went back and waited.
Yeah, that alone is crazy enough. I didn't want to freak the guy out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want him to get a restraining order on me.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to deliver the message I got faithfully, Mm-hmm. So he called me and I said, Tommy, are you sitting down? He goes, should I be? And I said, it's up to you, but here's how this is going to go. I'm going to tell you what I heard, and you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to say, holy cow, how could you possibly know that? Mm-hmm. Or you're going to say, nope, that's not right at all. Mm-hmm. Never call me again. Take my number out of your phone. So I knew it. I knew it was risky, but I know that voice. I know when I'm told something, It's happened to me many times. And so anyway, I told him what it was, and it was dead silent for about 5 seconds. And he goes, well, I was on my knees crying, and I did make that promise to God. My dad had COVID. It looked like he was going to die. And I just cried out on his behalf, and he had a miraculous turnaround. And I said, okay. And he goes, do you have any other messages for me? I said, no, that's the only one I got right now. Well, 4 to 5 months after that phone call, maybe about 4 months, I went to Phoenix, Arizona for this huge convention. And who was the keynote speaker?
Tommy.
And Tommy does this thing, and at the end of his speech, he wraps up with, a message about God and faith. And he says, about 3 months ago,
he tells his story.
He tells a story. He says, the craziest thing happened to me. This guy called me out of the blue, and he told me things that no one could ever know. And so my friend, Howard Pearl, who owns Pride Air Conditioning in South Florida, we're very good friends. When Tommy started telling the message, he said, he's talking about you. And I said, I know. It was really surreal. Yeah. There's thousands of people in this room. Yeah. So this time when he finished, I made a beeline right to him. There was probably literally 20 people clamoring around him. And I said, Tommy, good job on being faithful to the message. And he stopped dead in his tracks. And he said, what did you say? And I said, it's me, your messenger.
Wow.
And he goes, this is the guy right here. This is who I was talking about. It was crazy. He goes, get with my PR person. I want you at my house tonight. I mean, I went to this guy's house. It's like 50,000 square feet. He has a lazy river around his property. And I mean, it's just insane. It was so much fun. It was a wonderful time. The owners of Chirp and all these companies were there. And they look at me and they go, what company do you own? Right. And I said, no, were you at the message? I was the guy that, very cool. So it's funny how those situations can put you in an environment in circles with people that you normally would never get invited into.
Absolutely. So, one of the things I again, this is only a 30-minute podcast, but I know you have thousands of these stories, which is why I enjoy hanging out with you. And those who get to do business with you or develop a friendship with you will get to can hear many of these stories like this one. Let's talk a little bit, and thanks for sharing those very personal things with us. I think tell us a little bit now about your family. As what kind of hobbies, activities do you do? I know the girls are not living at home anymore, but whether when they come home visit, what are the things that you guys enjoy when you're not working or in your professional life?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we used to do when the girls did live at home, even when they were in college, is we would do this thing called Java Ventures. So we are big coffee fiends. We love coffee. And we would pick out 3 or 4 off the beat, not Starbucks, but these different like microbrews and coffee houses. And we called it Java Ventures, where we go do these coffee, treks. And it was very cool to see how people served up different coffee and muffins. And then when we'd leave, we'd go around and we'd, out of 5 stars, what did you give the coffee? What did you give the customer service? What did, and so we would like judge it among the family. And those were always fun. Those are great bonding times, but we love to travel. We love to go places together. We love to be together.
Do you still do the treasure hunts? On the weekend?
Oh, yeah. For years and years and years, we used to do yard sales. Yeah. And so my wife, this was dangerous. She found an app that would lay out like 30 yard sales, right? So we'd go to Starbucks. We'd leave Starbucks. We'd hit the first one at 8 a.m. because she'd say, hurry, all the good deals are getting taken up. And what husband doesn't want to wake up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, right? So, but we'd go hit all these yard sales. And on the way to one, we'd see a sign, and everyone in the car would yell, bonus. And then you got to, you'd make a hard right at about 40 miles an hour just to get in there and see. But that was always exciting. You didn't know what you were going to find. And we used to scare people because we'd show up at 2 or 3 cars pile out. There'd be 10 or 12 of us, big family. So it was like, what is going on? So, we turned every yard sale from a dud to a stud. Instant.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now that you're here, though, again, you and Susie are here. And how often will the girls come see you?
Well, as often as we'll pay for their flights and get them here. They're going to be here, thankfully, for Christmas. Yep. We had Thanksgiving together, but we did that down in South Florida. It made it easier for everyone. But yeah, we'll either get them to us or us to them. So Anissa is up in New York, and Bella is over in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yep. So we're all kind of spread out.
Which is where we reconnected, Charlotte, North Carolina, which is probably another whole podcast.
Another crazy story.
Another crazy story.
You're like, well, I'm going on that date, and you're going on that date, and we're 5 minutes away from each other. So, crazy. That was really wild. Really wild. Yeah.
Take us now back as we start to near the end of the podcast. One of the things, again, that I always stands up about you with me and the years we've known each other is you really care deeply about people. You show it with your actions, including standing up to that, for that man that cost you almost your life in Taco Bell.
Yeah.
But if you could look back, we weren't 18 when we met, we were in our 20s. But still, if you could look back at that young Greg who was 18, 19, 20, they say that youth is wasted on the young, right? Because now we have more wisdom and we have white hairs to prove it. And I don't know if they would listen, if Jaime and Greg, when they were 18, would listen to us. Because they probably say, you don't know. Yeah. But what would you tell him now that you've learned? What would you tell him to do different, right, to make his life, Because there's probably somebody sitting out there who says, well, I have a tough life like Greg. I don't have nothing handed to me, but it sounds like he's done well. He's, now did with his hand what he had to do to make it a winning hand and now enjoys a great life, has a great job. What advice would you give young Greg or any young person, that maybe's encountered difficulties but wants to be successful like you?
Yeah, man, you ask great questions, Jaime.
I have a team behind me.
Well, I would tell the 20-year-old something, Jaime, don't ignore your friend for 20 years. That's what I would tell him. That's another podcast. Yeah. But what I would tell young Greg is I would say surround yourself with great people. Surround yourself with people that are going somewhere and have a vision for their life. Read more. Read. I caught the reading bug probably in my late 20s and have slowed, quite honestly, over the last 4 or 5 years. But, devour books and then actively look for ways to implement those things into your life. They say readers are leaders. It's true. And an unopened book is a block of wood. So open that thing up, and. Does
it mean literally a book with pages, or can it mean the Kindle, the audio being? Yeah. Are you picky about that? Do you have to have the paper to write on? And
you know what? Some would chalk this up to my age, but I think studies have shown, and you'll have to fact check me on this, but I think that when you read, the different parts of your brain that you exercise to have to digest what you're reading is more than if you just listen. It's like when you go to the gym and you get on a treadmill, right? You feel like, oh, you're really running. But if you get outside on the pavement and you run like that, it's very different. The machine is not doing a lot of the work for you. So I always like to have a pen, a highlighter in hand, and a book. And I love to annotate and mark that thing up. And the interesting thing too is when you do that and then you find that book 2 or 3 years later, you read it and it has all new meaning because you've changed a little bit as a person, you know? So I think there's great value in that. But the advice I would give too is, you know, save every way, you know, take care of yourself physically, financially, surround yourself with good people, and be like a stamp. You know, a stamp gets put on something until it gets to the destination it was meant to be. Stick to what you're doing, you know, and you'll get there. I have a whole lot of those.
Yeah,
those are free.
I hadn't heard that one.
You know, no, I got a lot. I like to tell people, you know, anger is only one letter short of danger. You know, you put a D in front of anger and it's danger. Yeah, I got a lot of those. So.
Yeah, you got to charge for those. Those are good. Those are good. Well, that's great advice. I think, I think my young self would benefit from that, you know, take better care, save, build, you know, relationships that are good for you, because we tend to, I think at that age, frequent people who make us feel good in the moment, right? Or give us stuff that at that moment seems right, but long term, you know, you haven't developed that long term vision yet. Yeah. Which is what we have now.
They say old friends are good friends.
Yeah.
You know, and that's true of you and I.
Unless you forget them for 20 years. That's
another podcast. But you and I both have a very big circle of close friends that you've held for probably 10 plus years.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple that, you know, Lonnie Wright's been on this podcast, but I'm thinking now you mentioned Richard Box. He would be a great interview. We need to talk to Pastor Richie and see if he'll come, you know. Former UNLV running Rebel.
Yeah, he's got a lot of history here, you know.
Stuff,
Or Rosita.
Yes.
She works for the president over there at UNLV.
For Dr. Whitfield, he's been here.
Yeah. So you've had everyone. I looked at your podcast and I was like, man, Jaime gets all the heavy hitters.
Well, we started with, you know, again, our goal was to do our 23 board members, and now we're, I think, over 130, 140 episodes. So yeah, it's kind of taken a life of its own. So let's get with Pastor Richie, then we'll talk to him.
Awesome.
Maybe he'll bite the bug. So, Greg, the last thing we do for our guests is to invite them to, as a thank you for your time you took here to tell us about PUI. I think that's the main thing. What does the business do? How do you connect in the business community? If you guys are not connected with the Chambers of Commerce, let me know and we can help with that, because that's another way for you to network and, you know, develop your business, right? Whether it's the Vegas Chamber, Latin Chamber, Urban Chamber, Henderson Chamber of Commerce, any of our local chambers, I think they're members of our board. The Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance also helps with, you know, business growth and connections. I'm a member of that board. Tina's a member of ours. So let us know. But this time is dedicated for you to kind of share with our viewers, our listeners. You've already shared how they can connect with you through the website, your email address. But is there any events, not just of the company you work for, but organizations you care about that you want to share with our listeners, viewers?
Well, you know what? The organization that we're tied probably most closely with, and this organization actually had, I think, LVGA, is that correct?
Yeah.
Had the gentleman show up that gave all the statistics and everything. I think you and I talked about that. Is Southern Nevada Home Builders. And so they put on.
It was Brian who did that, right?
Yes, Brian.
From Applied Analysis.
That is correct. Man, you have a wonderful memory.
Well, you told me the story because I wasn't there, but you told me you heard it. Yeah.
Very impactful, yeah. But we're connected with like ABC, Southern Nevada Home Builders, and, you know, attend all those events. PUI, we're not putting on any events. We have a Christmas event coming up. And then we'll participate in other things within the industry. But we ourselves, we're not really putting anything on at this point.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, a few weeks ago, Brian's partner at Applied Analysis, Jeremy Aguero, was here.
Okay.
So if you look at our podcast, look him up, you'll probably enjoy that episode. We haven't had Brian yet, so that's another note I'll make to maybe ask Brian to come in as well.
I'll leave with one final quote because I think it's so fitting.
You're going to charge, or is free also?
It's free. Okay. These are all free. All right. There's a quote that says, when you know powerful people, powerful things happen. And I really do believe that, you know. And I'm not just saying this blowing smoke. I think you are one of those people. Over the course of our time together and knowing each other, you've come a long way from the dishwasher to the, you know, where you are at today.
At the vineyard. Dishwasher at the vineyard, yeah.
That's another podcast. We'll have to get about 4 or 5 of them in.
The antipasto buffet. Remember the accordion guy?
You were like, man, all these people are getting handed cash. How do I get in on that?
It was called tips.
Right.
Gratuities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, bro. It's been great to have you here, Greg.
Yeah.
Like you said, we have material for probably 2-3 more episodes, so we'll probably have you back.
Thank you, Jaime.
Thanks for making the time. Best of
course.
luck with PUI. Tell Scott again, we're here to help connect with, as he grows his business to our business community partners here. So again, thanks for coming today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I so appreciate you.
All right.
All right.
Well, that's it for another episode of the WC Podcast. We hope to see you at a future one. Until then, stay safe. All right, Greg. Well, thank you for staying over for our bonus segment called Against the Wall. Who knew?
Absolutely. Come on, let's do it.
All right. We have 3 sections. The first one is called Your Favorites, where I'm going to give you a category, and you're going to list your favorite item in that category.
Okay.
First one, favorite food.
Oh, that's easy. I'd say probably Mexican food.
Favorite beverage with that Mexican food.
Sweet tea.
Favorite car you've ever owned.
A 68 Firebird.
Favorite musical group or artist.
Aha.
Favorite movie.
Shawshank Redemption.
It's a great one. Favorite book.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Dale Carnegie. Favorite college sports team.
Go Buckeyes.
Favorite professional sports team.
The Bulls.
Favorite Vegas sports team.
UNLV.
All right.
I'm going to get stoned.
The second segment is called Tough Choices. Are you ready?
Yes.
Florida Atlantic University or UNLV?
UNLV.
Bishop Gorman High School or Bonanza High School?
Bonanza.
Vacation or staycation?
Vacation.
When you go to that vacation, would you rather drive there or fly there?
Fly.
When you get there, would you stay in a hotel or Airbnb?
Hotel.
When you retire one day, will it be in a ranch or in the city?
It's a really good question. Probably a ranch.
If you had a day all by yourself, would you rather spend it by the ocean or hiking in the mountains?
By the ocean.
If you were a superhero, would you rather have the ability to fly or breathe underwater?
Fly.
The ability to speak with animals or speak any foreign language?
Any foreign language.
This is where it gets really hard. You ready?
Yes.
Actions or words?
Is that a question?
Yes, you have to choose.
Oh, action.
Okay. Justice or grace?
Grace.
All right, you made it through tough choices.
Wow.
Rounding around the corner. The last segment is called Finish the Sentence, where I'm going to give you 95%. You're going to finish it for me.
Okay.
If Greg could only smoke one cigar, what it would be?
A sad day.
That's good. That's good. Because there's too many brands to choose from, huh? Yep.
Right.
Very good. If Greg could only sip one more glass of fine whiskey or bourbon, it would be?
Oh,
I was going to think another sad day, but no, I like it. Think about it.
yeah.
You have some favorites.
Probably Whistle Pig.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Small batch.
Yeah, yeah. Decent.
Mhm.
Yeah. If Greg could visit any place in the world, it would be?
Any place in the world.
I forgot to mention these are rapid fire, but yeah,
England.
it's okay. Take your time.
England.
The best part of living in Southern Nevada is?
Being with you.
All right. Greg's favorite thing about his job at Pacific Utility Installation is?
Getting to serve people.
If Greg could travel back in time, he would travel to?
1987.
And 3 words that describe Greg are?
Intelligent, funny, aggressive.
And no lack of self-confidence.
I don't think so.
Doing the WC podcast here today with us was?
Amazing.
All right. Well, thanks for staying over doing the bonus segment.
You're welcome.
That's great.
Thank you, Jaime.